Well, hi, folks. This is Jim Peacock with another Peak Careers interview. And today we're going to be talking about why you should be reading for professional development and also a few good ideas for books. And so today my guests are a whole bunch of people. And so I sent out an email to people in my sort of network, my broader network, and I said, who's a reader, who's out there, and who'd like to do this? And so I've got 4 people today who will introduce themselves in a minute. There's a number of each person's going to have 1 to 2 minutes to answer these questions. Why do you think reading books is important? And then what's your favorite book? So that's kind of what we're doing today. It's a little different than my past interviews, but that's what we're going to rock with. And here are my guests. And so what I'd like to do is have you folks just briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into the first question.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, I'm Belinda Wilkerson. I am an independent educational consultant based out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. My background is I'm a former middle and high school social studies teacher, a former high school counselor, and a former counselor educator. All of that in Rhode Island, and I transitioned over to independent educational consulting when I moved to North Carolina.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Edward Lawrence. I am the training coordinator for 2 American job centers in Massachusetts, Mass Hire Framingham and Mass Hire Norwood. My job is to build job programs in conjunction with employers, so try to give the people the skills that the employers are looking for. In addition to that, as a technical trainer for 35 years, I've got a CompTIA CTT Plus. I've got a combination of both coaching and computer skills that are pretty helpful across the broad spectrum. So I help my colleagues and clients not only with resumes and cover letters or presentations. I can actually help them when they say, hey, what's gone wrong with my computer here?
I'll be calling you.
I'm Carol Pelletier, and I am the School to Career Coordinator here at Camden Hills Regional High School. I have 25 years of experience working in career and technical education, formerly a culinary arts instructor, and I work with students in the high school, both at Midcoast School of Technology in their career and technical programs, as well as the cooperative education program here at Camden Hills, and teach several classes in entrepreneurship and goal setting, the whole, we call it ACES, the Career and Academic Success Seminar.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Hutchison. I'm a faculty member and department chair in a counselor education program at New Jersey City University, about 10 minutes outside of Lower Manhattan on the west side in Jersey City, New Jersey. Online, I also have a personal brand called Global Career Guy, and I focus on providing clinical supervision, keynote speeches, books, trainings with a global career perspective. So really excited to join everyone here today.
Right. Well, thank you. So let's dive in here. So why do you think reading books is so important for your own professional development?
Well, I'll start off here. Well, I think reading books is so important for my professional development because we always talk to our students about being lifelong learners, and we find that the pace of things change so much, and you need to stay abreast of everything so that you can help your students. I think it's important that people continue to read books and other things for their professional development, because that's how we find out about the changes. That's how we find out about what careers may be coming down the pathway, what new technology is available. And a lot of times the only way you find out about that is either by reading about it or pursuing finding out more about it through webinars or something else. But my personal favorite is reading books. I happen to be the vice chair of our local library system, so I am really big on books.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Edward.
I liked what Belinda said about the pace of change. It is so fast. So as a trainer, I can't be static. I have to stay ahead of my clients, I have to stay at least, even and preferably no more than my colleagues. And I don't want to be giving out the wrong information. This is important for me because I'm in two worlds, both technical and soft skills. So I find myself reading books all the time. And it's really great that in my workshops, people, they really buy into what we're trying to impart to them. And they'll actually come up and say, hey, have you read this other book?
Mm,
And that gives me more ideas to keep going.
great.
So much in the same vein as what both Belinda and Ed have said, teaching at the high school level, obviously, I can't even begin to say how important it is for students and to keep reading, to keep learning, to keep understanding the world around them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a book. It could be blogs or MOOCs or vlogs or however they want to get this information. But it's important to stay up to date and current. And for me, having this, I guess, being involved in a career change now in my second year in a new career, to catch up and stay abreast and current has been vital to read. And I have a book club here at Camden Hills for professional development. So we have offerings. We have a mini library for teachers in our break room. Our librarian was Teacher of the Year last year, so she's really, really up to date on what's current. She's always taking information and giving and imparting that information. So reading is so important, and it breaks my heart often when I have students say that I don't read. I don't, but at least they will listen, they will take part in other methods of getting that experience and that knowledge. But we have a lot of students who think that they can't read, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think a lot about the work that we do today, and I think it's really, I always think of the metaphor of skipping stones versus dropping anchor. And the pace of change is so fast, and the abundance of information is so great that it's really easy to be in this field and just stay on the surface. And so I think about, like, you pick any credential and there are thousands of people getting that credential, which provides the baseline, but how are people going deeper to actually create expertise and create value in what we do as career professionals? And for me, the anchoring piece are books. And so, I really look at books as more about how I think versus what I do, giving me that deeper anchoring, versus this broader thing, because we need to tether or anchor ourselves to something, because otherwise, we're doing the new idea that we read last week online, or we're doing the most current fad that's going to come and go. But I really see books as repositories for the deeper knowledge. And if I'm not spending time there, I'm actually not creating any additional value beyond just a basic training that thousands of other people might have.
Yeah, for me, it's what I'm always looking for is perspective change, right? And just to be able to, because I don't have the answer. I'm an expert in my field, but I'm not the expert in the field. I always feel like there's more to learn. And what I love are books that sort of challenge some of my thinking, challenge me to maybe do something in a different way. But look, like you said, Brian, it's just maintaining the job that I'm doing right now is just not good enough. I need to challenge myself to have that perspective change, and maybe, hey, maybe I'll do something different. Maybe I'll change some of the ways I approach how I am working with clients, or how I'm doing trainings or whatever. Other thoughts on that? Anybody?
I like everything I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. So I think.
Oh, sorry. I think to piggyback on what you're saying, Jim, is that we know that the way, particularly that the internet works, that it's very algorithm based, and so what happens is our worldview gets smaller and smaller and smaller over time if the internet is our only information source, or if the same newspaper or the same magazine.
Yeah.
And so, You know, another thing that I challenge myself and others to do is to read books outside of your discipline. Read books that aren't directly related to the job in front of you, because otherwise all we're doing is narrowing focus over time. And they're deeper, but they're also broader. And again, it's a competitive world right now. Like, our value is having something different than the basics. And books, I think, are the primary way to get there, for me at least.
Brian, I want to add to what you said about this narrowing down. A lot of people still don't realize how a lot of the online, especially social media sites, are giving us what they think we want to hear. So therefore, we're only getting the news that we like. So that really accelerates, I think, what you're talking about.
Yeah. And you know what? The other, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just piggybacking on something that Carol had within my profession, we actually have a book club. It's called a Wonder Women in Admissions Book Club. And every month we pick a book, and one of the women in the Facebook group leads the book discussion for that month. And for December, our book is Becoming by Michelle Obama.
Nice.
You know, the thing I was thinking about is the value of reading books for me also is I can actually have interesting conversations with people about books. You know, I mean, you can just, even if they're just fun books. I mean, they're like right now I'm reading a Clive Cussler, which is nothing but the James Bond of the book world, right? I mean, it's like these insane situations, but sometimes I just need an escape, you know. But it allows me, and I got a buddy who's read all of them. So, you know, when he and I go out together and we're playing cribbage and chit-chatting and whatever, fishing or whatever we're doing, you know, we can, you know, it's conversation. So it's really, besides professional book reading, it just brought, I think it makes us, you know, more in-depth and hopefully more interesting people to be around.
What I'd like to know, Ed, is with your position being in IT and everything like that, my concern working with high school kids is the fact that they don't, you know, everything is at their fingertips. They can get that information, even though it may be that very narrow focus. How do we get them more interested in the book? How do we get them interested in picking up this piece of paper or this hardcover and actually making some deeper meaning and getting building empathy or something with that? So I guess that's where I'm coming from. You know, being a high school teacher, it's really, times have changed so much, you know, and I'm old, you know, let's face it, I'm old. I love a book. I love the smell of a book. I love the feel of a book. I have a Kindle reader. I don't like it as much, you know, but it's like, how do I impart that love and desire of books into the students? We're trying, you know, we're working really hard to do that, but I find that, you know, I hear kids say, I get all of my information from Facebook, and I just want to cringe.
Yeah, my concern about the, not exactly the book part, but the technology part on the young people is that I have found what Brian has alluded to, a lot of this narrowing down, people are losing connections. So for example, I met a person earlier this week who actually, they could not download a document, their resume, and they asked me for their credentials. And I said, well, I don't know what your credentials are. Those are the things you chose. And they didn't quite understand the difference between using Gmail on their phone versus accessing Gmail on, you know, the PC. They didn't understand these were the same things. You know? And what I have to try to do is start educating them first on some simple concepts. And you know, for me, like when you brought up the Kindle, even showing people documents, real PDFs and documents on the computer, that's a way of reading. You know, so I think what we're all talking about is whatever the form is, Kindle, PC, you know, or on the phone, you know, we want people to be, you know, seeing the words, reading so that they can have understanding.
Yeah. Well, listen, folks, we're going to move on to our top book choice, our favorite books for 2018. Kind of get a little snippet of that, and what what I'll do on the YouTube channel is I'll list the book and maybe put a link to Amazon for people. But go ahead, Dave. Brian, what do you think? Do you have a favorite?
Jim, you know me well enough to know I can't give you one. And I didn't actually look to see that these were published in 2018, but these are the books.
No.
And so, so the one that's closest to my role as a counselor is The Deepest Well by Nadine Burke Harris. And it really talks about the long-term effects of childhood adversity. And so as a career professional, I really think about how that shows up in the workplace. The mind changer for me was Winners Take All by Anand, and I don't know how to say his last name, but it's Giridharadas, I think. But it really looks at how we've created a social system of sort of false generosity and false, how the capitalists sort of create a system of giving that keeps people poor, keeps people from achieving their goals. And then to piggyback off of you, I'm always reading, I like to read Clive Cussler from other countries because I have a global perspective. And so Deon Meyer is a South African writer that writes crime fiction and some other types of fiction that sort of fit that ilk. So I apologize to my colleagues, but I can't pick one. I feel like a fraud. It was hard to pick three.
I know. I hear you. I hear you. Carol.
Thank you. And much like Brian, my most favorite book is usually the one that I'm currently reading. I hate to say that, but I both for professional development and learning as well as personal, I love to read. I would have to say, and this wasn't published last year, but I have to say one of the books I enjoyed the most was called The End of College, Creating the Future of Learning and the University of Everything, which was written by Kevin Carey. He's the Director of Ed Policy Programming of New America. And the perspective that he gives about learning is everywhere, and we can take part in learning. And especially now where we're looking at our students being able to graduate based on portfolios, our students being able to graduate not so much on the Carnegie Unit credit, but by proving their worth by providing evidence of what they've learned. It really fits very, very well into what we've been saying, in the career and technical world for a long time. So I really like that. Right now I'm reading this, though, and I'm absolutely loving it. It's called Teach, Breathe, Learn, and it's by Mina Swartz. Again, Brian, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Anyway, it's a really, I guess it's my age, but I've started to get into more of the spiritual side of mindfulness and how to connect with my students and my colleagues and my staff and my family, and having my students be able to do the same thing and learning it a lot sooner than I did, so that would be it. And I have to say, personally, I'm reading The Quiet American again. I love Graham Greene. So I had, it's like a standby for whatever. So thank you.
Great. Edward.
Well, much like Brian and Carol, I read multiple books at the same time. So usually 3. And I'm currently reading first the biography of Grant by Chernow, because I love to study the leadership style of presidencies. The second book that I'm reading, I'm going to throw this up here, I guess it was published 2013, The Startup of You by Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn. And this was suggested to me by my boss as part of our effort to deliver more entrepreneurial workshops to job seekers. We've got to get them out of the mindset that, we look for a job, we apply online, it's part of the philosophy. We're in charge of our own careers now. I'll mention as an aside, the author Elizabeth White, she wrote the book 55, Unemployed and Faking Normal. I met her twice, and she said to me one time, Ed, the cavalry's not coming through that door. We're responsible for ourselves. So Reid Hoffman's philosophy goes right along with that, and it's really making an impact. We started changing our workshops here at the career centers to say, you've got to be in charge, don't wait for anybody else. And the third one, pardon me, the third book that I'm currently looking at is from the people who founded the DISC system, Wiley Publishers. So basically the work of leaders. And pardon me again, bad time to cough. But they talk about a true leader has to have a vision. Then you have to align other people with that vision. And finally, everybody, once we're on the same page, will be able to execute, and we can all be successful. Really easy to read book with simple concepts. I highly recommend it to people.
Great. Thank you. Belinda.
Hey, and me. So I did kind of, well, at first I stuck to one book, but as everyone was talking, I said, oh my goodness, I'm like all of you, multiple books going at the same time. Right now, you know, it's kind of embarrassing. I'm on the board of the library and I have overdue library fees. Because I always have to look out. And I never want to take them back on time. But one of my absolute favorite books this year, because I'm always trying to look for ways to help students talk about their potential career pathways. Because there's no way you can talk about post-secondary education without talking about career interests, aptitudes, and so on and so forth. So lately, I've been really focusing on a lot of stuff around STEM and how students, there are so many pathways to STEM, especially for young women. So I actually have this LinkedIn relationship with the author of this book, and that's how I found out about this book. But this came out this year. It's called Her STEM Career, Adventures of 51 Remarkable Women by Diane Propsner. But the interesting thing about it, so there's 51 women who are all in different STEM careers. So for me, it's giving me a broader view of the different ways young women can go into STEM. But also, it exposes me to more STEM careers that I didn't really know a lot about. Mm. In addition to it, the other part of the book is that every one of the women profiled in this book attended a women's college. So one of the hardest sells for me as a college consultant with young people, with young women, is talking to them about it, maybe attending a women's college. Mm. So this is a great overview. It's one of those things, so it's professional development for me. It's a great resource for my students. But I also use it with the males too, because you know, they all want to be a doctor. Okay, well, let's look at all the different pathways that you can do within STEM. So this gives us a stepping stone, another place to start the conversation. Just like everyone else, starting to read more of those books around mindfulness and spiritualness and trying to get on the right track. So one of the books I'm reading now is called Girl, Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. And she does a really good job of each of her chapters is prefaced with a lie, a lie that we tell ourselves about something in our lives, and how once you start unpacking it, you realize that everyone else is going through the same thing, and it's just a part of life. And it's just really good. And, she says, we don't need to make excuses if you want to be a workaholic. You just have to figure out how that works within your family. So it's been an eye-opener for me. It's been an eye-opener. I really enjoy reading it. And of course, Becoming by Michelle Obama, just finished that. I'm now waiting for the audio version because I want to hear her narrate the story. So that's going to be, I'm on pins and needles waiting for that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you all very much. This is Jim Peacock with another, a second part to the Peak Careers interview on why you should be reading for professional development. I actually am going to be splicing two different interviews together. So I've had a number of different people, number of different career professionals who love to read books. That's sort of my people. And we're just going to start this interview off with quick introductions, and then we're going to talk about why reading is important for our own professional development. And then each of my guests is going to talk about their favorite book. So that's what we're going to be rocking up today. So let's start with quick introductions from my guests today.
Okay, well, good morning. I'm Elise Copeland. I am a career technology academic counselor at a high school career center in Center, Texas. I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you. Barry?
Okay, Barry Davis in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm a career coach, graduate college professor, and aspiring doctoral candidate. I just finished my first semester. I, too, am just excited to be here with you all.
Great. And our winner for being furthest away from Maine.
Yes, hello. My name is Barbara Janssens. I'm based at the German Cancer Research Center in Heidelberg, Germany. I'm a careers advisor here for researchers, doctoral and postdoctoral researchers.
Great. And Marie?
And good morning, Marie Eddy from, well, I just started my own business, Eddy Career Services, but I did work for 19 years in education as a school counselor. So some of my current work comes from that.
All right, well, great. So let's just start off with what are some of your folks' thoughts about why reading books is so important for your professional development?
Well, I'll start. Getting back to the whole career counseling piece and knowing who you are, I am a visual learner, so I need to see it to remember it. And you know, the written word is so important that when I go to a conference, I have to bring a pen and paper to write down what I want to remember. Because if I don't, all I remember is what the speaker was wearing, how they walked around the room, that kind of stuff. So writing it down makes it visual and makes it able for me to remember what the speaker's saying.
Yeah.
Now, also, not surprisingly, my Clifton strengths are intellection and input, which pretty much explains why I'm a bibliophile. I not only love reading books, I love seeing books on shelves. I get lost in libraries and bookstores. So it's no wonder that reading for professional development is pretty much my preferred method.
Yeah. Barbara, your thoughts. What are your thoughts on professional development for reading books?
Yeah, so, well, you know, basically, I'm a trained biologist. I have a PhD in biology 16 years ago, and then transitioned to being an editor, and 8 years ago became a careers advisor. And for me, this is pretty much learning by doing and having some training. And to be honest, I was so busy like 10 years ago that I didn't have time to read anymore. In a couple of years, I didn't really read books anymore. 5 years ago, with some friends, we started a book club, and you know, just to be able to chat and talk about novels. And I enjoyed again reading at night, and that's, I think, what books are for me is like a little time for myself to get lost, and then in a certain sense also it's different. Yeah, you find information on websites, on blogs, and that's what I'll do for my professional development at work. And then the books I find, I really like this because I read them, and I won't read them at work, right? I mean, I'll do that in my spare time. I find this very motivating and also in a different way inspiring, because I get to take those elements along in my day and then think of the book I have been reading at night, or I'll read again tonight. Really looking forward to that. So that's why I find books very important also for professional development, almost as a private pleasure. Yeah.
It's awesome. Barry and Elise.
That's beautiful. Marie, I too am a bibliophile and a logophile. I have a pastoral training. I read New Testament Greek. I love to dig into what the derivation of words, the etymology. I get a word a day on my computer. I love libraries. I'm a big fan of wisdom. And to me, wisdom is applied knowledge, and knowledge is input. By the way, that's my #1 strength finder.
Oh, okay.
And I love the input. And I would argue that includes reading people you don't agree with. If you always stay in your lane, you're not going to get challenged. You're not going to get inspired. You're not going to learn things. So I love reading all sorts of books, from Dorothy Sayre and Douglas Adams to the technical books I'm reading now in my doctoral program.
I read The Hitchhiker's Guide.
Oh, it's a killer book. I quote it all the time.
Right, right. Well, I was thinking as I was listening, of course, the season that it is, I recall a comic strip that I saw recently, and it had a student sitting on Santa's lap, and of course, Santa asked the question, "What do you want for Christmas?" And the child said, "Oh, I want to be an astronaut, and I want a spaceship, and I want a video game, and I want all these things." And Santa looked at him and said, "You need to read. You need to read." And I smiled when I saw that, because that is what reading is to me. As a child, I have loved to read forever. And in fact, I was eating breakfast this morning and ate a piece of cheese toast. And I was laughing as I was eating, because I thought, I eat that because of reading Heidi when I was a girl. And I talked about grandfather fixing her breakfast in the mornings of melted cheese on bread. And that is exactly why I eat it even to this day, was because of that memory of that book. But professionally, I think it's not only required, but I think it's critical as a professional that I read, because I am a high school career counselor and academic counselor, and it would be very, very easy for me to get trapped in the world in which I work. And the world is bigger than this. And if I'm going to challenge my students to look beyond their world as it is, then I have to do the same. And that's what reading does for me. Not only professionally in career high school counselor literature, but if I'm going to prepare students for the world of work, then I need to know what's going on in the world of work today. And that means reading definitely outside of high school counseling material. So it's like Santa telling that child sitting on the knee, if you want to explore all these things and do all these things, you need to read. And that's truly why I read. It allows me to be anywhere, see anything, go anywhere, meet anyone. And as you were saying, Barry, reading, not necessarily people I agree with or points of view that I adhere to, but it reminds me to open my mind to different points of view and new knowledge. So professionally, it's just a must. You know, personally, it's a love. So it's just a gateway to anywhere I want to be. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. At least that's a great great way of looking at it. So let's just jump right in. And what's your favorite book in 2018? Elise, we'll start with you.
When you asked about that, I thought really a long time about it, because I really don't have a favorite book. I truly do not. At different points in my life, I've had a favorite book. And the reason it was a favorite at that time is because it spoke to me where I was at that time. And so as life changes and events happen, I find what I need at that point. And at that point, that's my favorite book. And a book that I'm reading right now, I'm rereading, is this one. I don't know if y'all have read it. It's called The Go-Giver. And it's a business model about how not only to be successful in business, but it has a strong tenet of giving. And the people who adhere to it have been successful in business, and it's a personal philosophy that I agree with. And so it's just an excellent book. So right now, that's my favorite book for 2018. I've read a lot of really good ones. So
awesome.
That's today. That's what my favorite book is today. So
that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Barry, my book reading buddy.
I had the same challenge, Elise. I got to tell you, because of my background and my passions, my favorite book every year will be the Bible, because I read it tremendously. I read original languages, and it's just so rich in types of things. But I dug through my annals, because I was taught very long time ago by a former boss to take notes. Used to be little 3x5 cards that I had, and then it was in a piece of software, and now it's in another. So I capture at least something from all the books I read. So I waded through my Goodreads and I came up with a book called Steal Like an Artist from Austin Kleon. It's a great little book. I just taught a class this last semester on creativity and problem solving. And in it, that book wasn't included, by the way. I did recommend it to my students. By the way, I've been accused of having way too many favorite books. But this particular one, it's a fun read because it kind of shakes you up. Unless you understand that creativity is not always painting, sculpting, writing, music. We all have creativity. We are born creative. We're imago Dei, in the image of God, and we all have the ability to create. And I hate to say it, but education just knocks it out of us more often than not. And this, for example, just one quick message. He says, one thing you do that I'm trying to aspire to. He has 2 offices in his building. One is an analog office, and one is a digital office. So he picks up a pencil, and he writes by hand first. He never starts with a computer because it doesn't engage your processes, your mental process, and he will jump back and forth between these 2. And I love that. I've been trying to practice it because I type stuff all the time, and I do take tremendous amount of notes, Marie. I take shorthand, so sometimes it freaks out my clients or my students. Say, "What are you doing?" But what a great idea to mix it up, to engage us. It slows us down.
Yeah,
we're always in such hurry. And by the way, the back of that book, if anybody's interested, shoot me an email. I'll send you my notes on it. He has 10 key suggestions on how to enhance creativity, and it's just a delightful book.
Oh, great. Thank you. Barbara.
Yeah, that's so nice to hear. I mean, Alice, I really agree with what you said. Like my preferred book is the one that speaks to me today, and it might be another one tomorrow. And what hit the thing for me is, I say 2018, I started rereading Marshall Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication, and it talks to me now because of the communication with teenagers at home. And that's when I realized, enjoying to read that in a sleepless night, and especially like the living nonviolent communication, like the practical stories of everyday life. Reading that is really influencing my professional work in counseling a lot. I really realized how much empathy, and especially self-empathy, are really important, and is really enriching at the moment. The work I'm doing, and it feels right, and that's why this is my favorite book of 2018.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Marie.
Well, as I said before, I just started my own business this year. So as a business owner, much of my professional reading has been around how to grow and market my business. So I read a few books that I really enjoyed. I'm going to give a shout out to Gary Keller and Jay Papasan's book, The One Thing, because I still use their mantra every day to keep me focused on what needs to be done. But in terms of what my favorite read was this year, that has to be Ryan Roten's Career Cred. And the subtitle of his book is 4 Simple Steps to Build Your Digital Brand and Boost Credibility in Your Career. Before reading this book, I had a vague understanding of the importance of being present online. And yeah, like everybody else, I had a Twitter account, LinkedIn, Facebook. I even created a personal blog several years ago, which I've done a terrible job at maintaining or posting to. But Ryan Roten really spells it out why it's vital in this day and age to have a very active online presence. And here's one of my favorite quotes from his book. Merely having an account today is like going to a networking event only to stand in the corner and not talk to anyone. So, and I admit it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a canoe paddling in a big ocean, but Ryan Roten does a good job of reassuring the reader that everything he writes about is doable. And his message about how things, take time to establish. It takes time to establish yourself online. He goes into detail on how and why to use a lot of different online platforms, but he also suggests that use 2 or 3 of them and get really, really good at them. Another takeaway for me that was really reassuring is he said that a majority of LinkedIn users don't post. I forget his exact statistic, but it was like under 5%. And so any posting you do there is going to build your online presence. The last thing I want to highlight about the book Career Cred is that it's filled with exercises to do, and Roten has a downloadable companion workbook that I found really helpful. So in terms of establishing a business and understanding the importance of being present online, I would have to recommend this book highly.
Sounds good.
Did you see him at NCDA this? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. I went to his workshop. That was excellent.
Yeah, he was good. He's very good. So I'll just throw my book, but I'm much like you folks. I don't have a favorite book. I have, like, if you could see this wall, I had a guy build an entire, this whole wall behind the computer is all books. It's just, I had to have somebody build me one. And it's sort of the more recent book that I read is sort of whatever is my favorite. And I just read Daniel Pink's When, The Scientific Secrets of Timing.
Oh.
And that's really very interesting about how, you know, we're fresher, most people are fresher in the morning, and in the afternoon you sort of begin to wane. And he was the research behind, if you interview in the afternoon, your chances of being hired are like 70% less.
Wow.
You are. So if you can interview, because people start to get tired, and the interviewers start to get tired, and they're not on their game, and they're looking for the negatives more than the positives. And so it was amazing. And that was even true with venture capitalists when they were applying for to try to get money to start a business. The ones that went in the afternoon often just didn't get it. The ones in the morning almost always, you know, were like 80% more. It was amazing. But a lot of it is, it's not just timing of the day. It's also the time, like decade. Like there were more 49-year-olds who ran marathons than almost any other age group. 39, 49, and 59-year-olds. And it was a really very interesting take on it. So anyways, I want to wrap this up. I'm trying to keep these my interviews to a reasonable length of time, and I want to thank all of you guys for joining me today. I am going to ask that you all send me your book titles and authors so that I can post it on the YouTube channel. And well, this isn't what I wanted to put up. Hold on here, folks. Don't go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. Okay, computer. There we go. Let's just leave it right there. So just to wrap it up, I'm Jim Peacock, principal of Peak Careers Consulting. Been teaching the facilitating career class since 2001. I have online seminars for career practitioners. I offer workshops for career professionals and do individual career coaching as well. And if you are a career practitioner, a counselor, anyone who delivers career services, you can sign up for my top 10 tips of working with an undecided person by going to my website. Feel free to connect with me anywhere on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Mostly most active on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, but I have a few other accounts. And I want to thank all my guests today. That was great and inspirational, and I look forward to reading some new books recommended by you guys.
Well, thank you, Jim. That was fun.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, and it was nice to meet all of you too.
Yeah, nice to meet you all too.
Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, that's nice. It's getting late afternoon for me, so you know.
Oh goodness. Okay.
All right.